Hello, beautiful people. Good good evening wherever you are. Happy Friday night. And thank you so much for spending it with us. I am Lizzie Chan, your host for tonight. Tonight's very special. It is New Naratif's 5th anniversary celebration. 5, right? What a number. Do you remember what were you doing when you were 5 years old? I don't remember much when I was 5 years old, but I do remember having so many questions about the world, and I was so eager about finding out every little questions and answers, and I hope that goes the same to you tonight. Tonight is for you. We dedicate tonight for you, for all of you who, you know, have questions and answers. And right now, if you can see on our screen right now, there's a lot of word search. The first thing you gotta do, find all of the words about Southeast Asian animals, and if you can, please kindly share and tag us at New Naratif. We want to see how many of the words you can gather. I see one. I see dugong. Do you guys see anything else? Don't forget, capture it, post it, tag us at New Naratif. We might have something special for you, for you who can, catch as many words as possible. And don't forget to leave comments or questions. We're gonna get it on. We're gonna read your comments and hopefully answers some of your questions about the citizens agenda or any other thing about New Naratif. And we also have so many things tonight. Aside from that, before we start, this is the general guideline that I hope everyone would like to keep in mind. Be kind. This is a safe space for all of us to express what we think, how we feel. So be mindful about every other things we're about to say, okay? Happy birthday, Nunard. Thank you so much. For everyone else, don't forget to, introduce yourself, say hi in the comment below. We want to know where everyone's coming from. What are you doing tonight? What else do you want to know about New Narrative? So get on there. So just for a little backstory tonight, I think the main theme for our anniversary tonight is showing resilience and how in this all 5 years there's so many highs and lows, but we're doing better and we're gonna give you so much. We have so much more for you to see, to read, to hear. So stick with us and you're so ready for the next stories that we'll be giving you. Side note, so New Narrative is a Virgo baby. I feel like that's something worth mentioning. Okay, so I don't want to waste anyone's time tonight, so let's get our event going. I would like to present to you our founder, PJ Tom. PJ, are you here? The room is yours.
Cool. Hello, everyone. So good to see so many of you here in the audience. And yes, welcome to our 5th anniversary celebration. It's quite amazing. New Narrative turns 5 today, and we've certainly come a long, long way from that day in the projector in Singapore back on the 9th of September 2017. Anyone else here who was there that first day? Raise your hand or say hello in the comments. I'd love to hear from you and what you think about how far we've come. So it's been a long road getting from there to here. We certainly learned a lot. But what has never changed is New Narrative's fundamental mission of trying to democratize democracy for Southeast Asians. Democracy in Southeast Asia is controlled by the elites, by the rich, by the establishment. So we aim to help Southeast Asians take back control of their lives and agency from those who seek to control us. Now, a common refrain heard across Southeast Asia is this idea that ordinary citizens cannot make a difference. And New Narrative was founded in 2017 as a response to that question, as a response to the question that people kept asking me, what can I do? They'd come up to me after lectures and talks and whatever and say, Dr. Tham, I understand what you're saying. I understand the information you're giving us, but what can I do? But together, we believe in collective action. Together, we can make a difference, and we have made a difference over the past 5 years. We build a better Southeast Asia by working together. And that's what New Narrative does. We build a better Southeast Asia by empowering Southeast Asians to, with the knowledge and skills they need to address our shared challenges and bring everyone together to take collective action. And we do so through this three-step process of engage, educate, and empower. We bring together Southeast Asians in a community of like-minded people who want to create positive change. We create information that explains the hidden or unseen forces which shape Southeast Asia, and we do so in accessible formats and languages. And we use that information to empower the community through our events and our democracy classrooms. And in the past 5 years, we have made such a huge difference. For example, in Malaysia, last year we ran Sekolah Democracy, and it was really well attended. But what I think I'm most proud of last year was actually after we reported on the lack of funding for refugee education for school children, K to 12 school children, donations from New Narrative readers allowed at least 14 students to stay in school. In Singapore, of course, where we first started, our impact is well known. Our coverage of the 2020 general elections was highly influential, and that's according to the government's own think tank, which said that people were more likely to vote for the opposition if they had done things like read the alternative media, attend online political discussions, and take political actions like signing petitions, all of which New Narrative has done. But of course, the best testament to our success in Singapore is the fact that the governing People's Action Party government passed legislation last year, specifically targeted at stopping New Narrative and stopping our activities in Singapore. But we will keep fighting. Don't you worry about that. We are not leaving Singapore behind. In Myanmar, this past year, we exposed a secret meeting between the National Unity Government and a US-based firearms enthusiast. Now, we've done a lot of negative reporting, of course, on the military junta. We don't approve of what they're doing and of the coup, but we don't take sides. And we have also exposed potential abuses by the National Unity Government. In Indonesia, what I'm really proud of is that we facilitated the creation of a secure, safe online space for non-binary people. And the feedback that we've gotten from that, from people who've been part of that space, they've told us that New Narrative has changed their lives, and that's incredible to know. In Cambodia, we also reported in the past year on the children of abandoned children of UN peacekeepers, and actually produced a documentary and did a lot of reporting that was a finalist for the SOPA Awards. So we actually have won as well a whole bunch of awards for our reporting, our news, our opinion, our stories. And one of the awards that we've won is for the Citizens Agenda, which the latest iteration we'll talk about next. So what next? Where do we go from here? Well, with New Narrative, there's two big things that we're going to focus on in the next 3 years, and that's accessibility and engagement. And the biggest announcement I'm going to make today is that starting from this year, from this point on, New Narrative is going to go fully bilingual into Bahasa Indonesia and English. Our entire editorial team is already fully bilingual in Bahasa Indonesia and English, and we are bringing people on a full-time translator, and hopefully by this time next year, we will have successfully translated all the existing work on the website into Bahasa Indonesia, and we will be operating locally in Indonesia, entirely in Indonesian. So but of course, accessibility isn't just about language. We've always stressed very much about making the site accessible to everyone, regardless of ability, regardless of disability. And so we really want to ensure that everyone everywhere in Southeast Asia can access our work. We're proud of the fact that we've worked very hard to make the website very accessible to the partially and fully unsighted, for example. So that's a whole holistic approach that we're going to keep going. Now, the other thing is engagement, and that's where we want to. Well, we had this epiphany. In the first few years, we've really approached new narrative in, I guess, the wrong way. We've looked at how we present ourselves in our work as if we were a media organization, as if we were publishing things. And we realized this past year that actually that is completely the wrong way, the wrong approach. New Narrative isn't a media publisher. New Narrative is a community. And we've always been a community, but how we act and how we present ourselves in our website doesn't reflect that. So the big mission for the next couple of years is greater engagement. And that means we're going to revamp the whole website. As you know, we've been having a lot of problems with the website. So we're going to junk the whole thing and we're going to have a new one sometime in the next year. And it's going to focus very much on community building, engagement, and we're going to have a lot more interactivity between all of you. The website is going to be your portal towards engaging with this community of like-minded Southeast Asians who want positive political change. So that's for the next 2 years, and I hope you'll enjoy. You'll join us and be a part of this journey. Please do go to newnarrative.com/join to join us as a member, or go to newnarrative.com/donate to donate. And with that, I thank all of you for joining us tonight. Back to you, Lizzie.
Thank you so much, Fijer. And as you can see, there's so many things that we have accomplished, but there's so much more to do. And with that, let's hit a break and let's get inspired with our next performance, calling Sidhi. Sidhi is an art practitioner. Sidhi explores queerness, religion, domestic issues, and questions about safe space through the making of collage, poetry, documentary, and community events. So, Sidhi, are you ready? Sid is going to be performing two of his original poems. So, Sidhi, what will be the first poem about?
That will be about surviving in New.
All right. So, Sidhi Vhisatya, the room is yours.
Hi everyone. I'll bring like two poems, as I said, about how to survive New City, and the second pride. First move to the city could afford a square room was to clean the field toilet every time neighbor has to rent, and for example, especially the grumpy from 3 hours of time every day, 3 more unpaid every time she called. To move to the city to myself the invitations to self-portrait. I picked people told me safe islands. I wasn't and spent my first year trying who am I going to my someone on my family a random klingan. I'm not sure how to start. Maybe by saying hi. I don't know. I was still happy, and I had went to the city, aboard a 3-room first time in my life, locked myself looking at the beach and to recover a very judgmental things that could go hours. Now I have invested. They call it or something. Wait a minute. There is
Hi, guys. Well, the things with virtual events, we were having a bit of technical difficulties, but CD will be back and hopefully with better audio. But for now,
For
don't
now,
forget to comment
to
below and
comments
see
below.
we're ready wherever you are.
We're ready wherever you are.
Can you hear me clear now or Lizzie?
Yes.
Good. When I the city and could afford a square room, first time in my life I kept myself in, look at trees and blue skies to calm myself to recover from a very judgmental therapy that could go on first about how I have to invest in a bullet as a house or sometimes home. They actually look like a rich room for unread bad feelings and real the ongoing feeling to fit in. And sometimes there is a food aroma and the best as well, but it doesn't look it more. They call it while I often feel like they kept fix me with all these facts about the upcoming demos or apply for an instant personal loan. It sucks that harvesting all and waiting for me home. Moving to a new life means I have 20% free for the rent, 30% for my parents, for my living costs, and 50% for the multiple professional times. Skincare routine, I want to feel good, Additional 10% loan whenever I need to punish getting fried chicken from KFC to cure exchange from a good found on Grindr. Percent from extra commit for unsolicited inflations that makes will cost you 100 rupiah. Another 10% loan from when work gets to that not being out enough hurts my career illustrator. I made friends with two of alcohol until they got addicted. When I first moved to the city, it was not an easy working class gay guy who the family I many times they give up on my simple. I just need to well really. Being a working class gay guy fit the family and keep experiencing hard. I learned good sleep is miserable. Wonder out so tired after 6 hours screen time. Why? Seeing my mirror seems like a joke. Why always tastes like the why laying in my bed feels like I sing out loud empty inside until I have no another day. Days of having to 24 hours, I feel even more. It's usually easy to sleep when I'm exhausted. Wake up, holding a sanitizer on my when everything is done here within seconds. When I first moved to, I wasn't so sure how everything done. Got up, looking at trees and gray skies through. I guess Ubud is for its unpredictable emotions. Anyway, standing there, as I've been looking for, I expect all the forgiveness from my mom. All the solidarity I friends. I and all the memories I bring them. I all the things I wanted. When I to the city, like I'm the most free I've ever known. hope I thank you that for Lizzie.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much. It's been a while since we see you perform this poem. How do you feel?
a bit nervous actually with the some connections. So I was like there is like this chat and things and but
That's all right.
it's good to be back. Thank you
You did great
for
though.
thank
But
you for
so we're gonna
we're gonna
move forward to
move
our
our
citizens agenda, and we're gonna get more poems and music right after this. But now I would like to present to you our civic participation lady, Charlene. What's up with the citizens agenda? Can you share with us?
Hey Lizzie, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, I'm completely feel the issues when it comes to running virtual programs. So sorry about that. So let's do a little shuffle and let's jump into the citizens agenda first, and then we'll come right back with all these great performances. So hi everyone, my name's Charlene again. I'm the civic participation manager here at New Naratif, and today I'll be moderating our next session of this program, which is the presentation of the Citizens Agenda, Malaysia and Singapore results, followed by a Q&A session on what we've presented. And so hope you look forward to this. We've got some interesting highlights and insights from the results this round. And I'm personally quite curious to find out what we've got to talk about today. So just very briefly, in case you're hearing about the Citizens Agenda for the first time, it's basically a space for people to voice their concerns and also a way to increase political engagement, where we want to hear from you on what you think are the most important or pressing issues in your countries. And tonight we'll be inviting PJ to present the results of the public survey for the Citizens Agenda Malaysia and also Singapore, followed by a short Q&A session. So if any of you have any comments or questions, you can feel free to submit that through the chat box or through the comment section through any social media that you're on, and we'll tackle them after this, should the time allow for it. So over to you, PJ.
Thank you, Charlene. Well, as you can see, everyone, the top 5 issues that Malaysians told us are most important to the country right now are cost of living, jobs and wages, economy, corruption, and education. Now, you'll remember that the Citizens Agenda works in 2 stages. The first stage, we ask people to just tell us what they think is important, and it's an open-ended question. We then summarize it into 22 issues, and then, or a list of issues, in this case 22, and then we go back to the people and we ask them to rank the issues. And this year, we worked with a professional survey company, Vast.ai, as well as a Malaysian data analytics company, Kotak Sakti, hey guys, to do this survey and ensure that everything you see here is actually statistically representative of the country as a whole. And what is amazing to me when you look at the Malaysia results is just how unified the country is about what the top 5 issues are. Because across every single race, age group, and gender and location, they picked the same top 5 issues across the entire country, from Sabah to Johor, from Perlis to Sarawak. Everyone picked the same top 5 issues, not necessarily in the same order, but in the same top 5 issues, with one exception, which was young people. Young people picked rights and discrimination as the number 3 issue and dropped corruption all the way down to 12. That's people who are 20 years and below, right? So that's the only exception. Otherwise, every age group, location, age, and gender picked these same 5 issues. So, as a Singaporean, there is this, I don't know really where it comes from, strange stereotype that Malaysia is a very disunited country. And I think some Malaysians also think that. But the Citizens Agenda actually makes clear that Malaysians agree, right? The number 1 issue is the economy, it's jobs, it's getting paid enough. And what they're most concerned about is that politicians are corrupt and they're not going to be interested in tackling these issues. They're more interested in holding on to power and lining their pockets. And if you look at it, reform of the political and public institutions is actually relatively a lot lower, which means people aren't so much worried about the quality of the institutions, but the quality of the people, the leaders running those institutions. Another interesting thing is how education is high across every single racial and age group. And I think that reflects on a deep concern that it's not just the right now that's the issue, but that we're not adequately preparing the young people of the country for the future, and that the education system is not enough to actually educate children and young people to take care of Malaysia and take care of the challenges in the future. Another interesting thing is that people ranked healthcare high, but COVID really low. And I think it means people are so over COVID. But what they are worried about is the next crisis. And they've seen how COVID really exposed the challenges that the public healthcare sector faces. Now, one other interesting thing about young people, people between under the age of 20, is they not only picked rights and discrimination as one of their most important issues, they also, as a group, were more concerned with gender and sexual identity than other groups. And I think that reflects the concerns of younger Malaysians who are also very concerned about people's rights and about discrimination in general. Now, where there isn't a lot of difference, as I mentioned, is across all the other groups. There is not a lot of difference between male and female genders. Between races, as you'd expect, minority races did rank rights and discrimination and race relations higher, but not as high as the top 5, generally between 7 and 10 for rights and discrimination, indicating that they do feel the economy, education, and corruption are far more important. And the last point I want to make before I go to Singapore is that with Malaysia, location does matter. What we've seen is that in Kuala Lumpur, people rank public infrastructure a lot higher. As any person living in KL will tell you, floods are a problem, public transport is a problem. People in Sabah ranked migrants and refugees much higher than everyone else. You'll see it's last year. And Sabah was the only place where it was a significant issue because, of course, there is a serious challenge with irregular migration over there. People in Kedah and people in Johor were both concerned with food security, but they're at the opposite ends of the peninsula. Possibly Kedah because it has had recent natural disasters, a history of rural unrest, and there's a dispute about water resources from the Muda River. With Johor, it's the proximity to Singapore, price pressure, visitors from Singapore driving prices up, and that it's not, food isn't its main, food production is not one of its main industries. And another one is that in Malacca and Negeri Sembilan, welfare and social security were ranked relatively higher, possibly because they have populations which are slightly older than the average age of the country as a whole. Okay. If you'd like to learn more, go to the newnaratif.com. We've got the report on Malaysia and Singapore up, but let me turn to Singapore. And with Singapore, it's a very different picture. With Singapore, again, cost of living, economy, and jobs are the top 2 issues, and everyone picked one of those 2 as one of the big issues. So when I say it's a very different picture, actually, the number 1 issue is the same, right? People are really worried about how expensive it is to live and whether they can get enough jobs. But Singaporeans come at it from a slightly different angle, because if you look at the next 3, it's housing, public health, well-being, and then after that, the environment and sustainability. And what we realize in looking at the results is that Singaporeans are more worried about the sustainability of their lives rather than just purely, can I get a job? What they're worried about is, can I have a life that is mentally sustainable, physically sustainable, environmentally sustainable, as well as financially sustainable. So that does reflect the much more developed status of Singapore's economy, and it shows that Singaporeans actually do really want to change the social contract that they have with the government to focus more on sustainability of their lives and not work themselves to death. But if you look at the overall results, virtually 85% of respondents picked either cost of living, economy and jobs, or inequality and social mobility. And of course, cost of living and economy and jobs were by far the biggest issues alongside the cost of housing and public health. Right. Another thing about Singapore that's different from Malaysia is that it is more sharply divided on racial lines. Where Malaysia, minority races said, yes, rights and discrimination is important, but not top 5. If you look at Singapore by race, it is a sharply diverse, a very divergent view, because Chinese, the majority race, pick the same top 5s here, but Malays and Indians, people who identify as Malay and Indians, both have rights and discrimination in the top 5. Racism and discrimination is number 3 for Malays, number 5 for Indians. So Singapore is actually a lot more racially divided in terms of how people perceive the issues, the challenges that the country faces than Malaysia. For others, interestingly enough, racism and discrimination was higher, but what was even higher than that was safety and security, which talked about cybersecurity, religious extremism, international neutrality, crime, the Russian-Ukraine war. So actually, there's a lot in there. I think that one needs a lot more study to understand. Broadly in Singapore, there's not much difference between the male and female genders, but if you take race and gender, you actually see some patterns. The number 5 issue for Chinese and male was governance and leadership. And I think this reflects this popular perception in Singapore that leadership is restricted to people who are or identify as Chinese and male and come from a certain social political group. So for the rest of us who are not Chinese male and from that group, well, let's not worry about governance because we're not going to be allowed to take part in it. The number 5 issue for Malay and male was education and human capital. And it was also ranked very high for Malay and female, Indian and female. And I think this reflects a lot of worries in those groups that they are not getting the educational opportunities that other groups get. And interestingly, for Indian and male, the number 4 issue was digital infrastructure, which I think reflects the connectivity and the high-tech literacy of India and the connection between the Indian diaspora and India itself. And I think in terms of age, there's a clear pattern where the younger you are, the more you're likely to see identify racism and discrimination as an issue. The older you are, the more likely you are to identify public health as an issue. These probably go under the category of well, obviously. But the big difference from 2019 that's very interesting is in 2019, there was a correlation between age and looking at the environment as an issue. The younger you were, the more concerned you were about the environment. Now, everyone is concerned about the environment. It is a top 10 issue. You'll see it's top 6 here, but it is identified as a major issue across all age groups. And I think Singaporeans are very concerned about the climate crisis and about how that is affecting Singapore. And the last observation I'll make is that location doesn't really affect things, but it does in terms of picking the issues of governance and leadership versus political stability. The areas which vote more PAP tend to pick political stability. The areas which vote opposition tend to pick governance and leadership. And so what you see is in the northeast, which includes Hougang, Sengkang, Punggol, governance and leadership ranks a lot higher, but in the west, which includes Bukit Batok, Jurong, Bukit Panjang, Choa Chu Kang, political stability ranks a lot higher. And I think the explanation is obvious. It's Workers' Party versus Taman, right? So those are the main things. And I think one last observation is that in Singapore, the political discourse of late has been a lot about the culture wars, things related to our physical, our rights, like the 377A, LGBTQIA plus rights, the death penalty, drug policies. But Singaporeans are less concerned about that relatively than purely economic issues. And I think it says a lot about Singapore that the government has been really trying to engage in the culture wars to distract from possibly to distract from, I don't know what the government's thinking, but why are they so focused on the culture wars when the PAPs raise on that, right? The argument is that we are economically competent. And especially when, as this shows, it's what Singaporeans are really concerned about. So overall, Singaporeans are worried about the quality of their lives, the sustainability of their lives. They're worried about being unable to afford to live. They're worried about working themselves to death, to exhaustion of their physical and mental health, and they want to do so in an environmentally sustainable way. Okay, so again, if you want to learn more and read more, go to newnarrative.com. The report is on the front page. And what's more, we've also made the raw data for both Malaysia and Singapore available, and we encourage you to take a look at the raw data and perform your own analysis on it. And I'm happy to take questions right now. Back to you, Charlene.
Thanks, Vijay, for that informative presentation. Yeah, I mean, I myself actually, my eyes were open. I feel like from the results, and it actually helps me learn a lot more about what's going on in Malaysia and Singapore. So yeah, we have maybe about 15 minutes for questions and answers. So let's very quickly go through some of them here. Right, so we have a question about, I guess this is perhaps a question about the next steps, or like what's New Narrative's plans to expand the citizens' agenda. Are there any plans, for example, to cover other Southeast Asian countries, and how would that look like methodologically? Yeah.
Oh, yes, definitely. Thanks for asking that, Charlene. I think definitely we want to expand to Indonesia. We had hoped to do so this past year, but what with the restructuring and the pandemic and all the challenges that we had financially, we weren't able to do so. But with the entire editorial team being Indonesian or based in Indonesia now, I think that we should be able to do the citizens' agenda in Indonesia next year. And I think it'll be really interesting because it is far, far bigger than Malaysia or Singapore, obviously, far more diverse, but also unified by a single language. So in some ways, it'd be easier because for Singapore and Malaysia, we had to run it in 4 languages. And we got responses in Malaysia in all 4 languages. In Singapore, it was entirely in English with, I think, 11 people answering in Chinese and no one in Malay or Tamil. So with Indonesia, it would be a lot more straightforward, Bahasa Indonesia. And otherwise, though, it would be the same process where we would survey in a 2-stage process and look at what people are concerned about. The main challenge is always between stage 1 and stage 2, taking all those responses and trying to summarize them effectively into a list of issues. And one of the interesting things I can tell you about this year was that Singapore and Malaysia are actually very interestingly divergent in how they talked about issues. Because Malaysia, on the one hand, had fewer issues than Singapore, but more overlap between the issues. And in some ways, there was, it may be that it's because Malaysia has fewer issues or more pressing issues, but another might simply be that because there is relatively greater freedom of expression and political discourse, freedom of political discourse in Malaysia, that people are already able to talk about a lot of these things openly and slowly build a consensus about how to address these. So there's so much more overlap, right, in fewer issues, whereas Singapore had way more issues. But when you come to those issues individually, people tended to talk about them in the same way. And this also, we think, is that maybe because Singapore, because there's greater repression and less freedom of expression, people are isolated in their echo chambers and they're not so much able to talk to other people and look at how their issues interact and intersect, right? And that this is also borne out by the results that Malaysians identified the same 5 issues across the whole country. Singaporeans, on the other hand, were far more diverse across race, across age, across gender, and across location. Yes, but so yes, to come back to your question, Indonesia next year, and we look forward to hearing what Indonesians have to say.
Thanks for that, PJ. And yeah, we actually have. I mean, on that note, actually, not sure if like how in depth we can tackle this question. This is kind of regarding accessibility. Someone's asking how easy or difficult is it to reach, or was it to reach participants in places outside the Klang Valley, such as Sabah and Sarawak? So I guess West Malaysia versus East Malaysia, yeah, like during the collection of data.
Well, that's why we work with Vast.ai. So Vast.ai are a professional survey company which tries to do surveys as a service. What they've done is they built up a diverse panel across Southeast Asia, I think in 5 or 6 different countries, 3.6 million people, so that they are able to have an accurate representation of each country. So if you survey a country, you should get enough people that you can have a reasonably statistically accurate picture of the country. And that's what we got with Vast.ai. You can look at our raw data, but we had people from every state. We had people from 18, which is the cutoff point, the lowest, all the way up to 75 in Malaysia and 100-year-old in Singapore. We had people of every well, different races in the official categorization, and we had people of genders in the official categorization. I think that's where the panel falls down a bit, in that it's limited to categorizing people according to official race and to 2 genders, which obviously New Naratif does not like that, but we found that same limitation across all survey companies. With our own public survey on jot form, we accounted for as many different races and genders as we could. We asked people to self-identify. But I think that's the main challenge, that there is more diversity than 2 genders or 4 or 5 races. But apart from that, in terms of location, in terms of age, what Fast.ai was able to provide was that diversity, and we worked with Kotak Sakti to ensure that we had a statistically representative sample across both Singapore and Malaysia. And if you look at the answers that we got also, in 2019, we had a lot of answers about the PAP's destructive politics, about transparency and accountability. But this year, we got a significant number of answers saying, oh, actually, I want the PAP to stay, right? It's really important to me as an issue that there's political stability. And that also shows the kind of diversity that we had. We had people who identified or were identified against the kind of issues, the kind of positions that New Naratif takes. They were against LGBTQ rights, for example, and we reflected that in the survey and in showing, what people think. And also it shows the scale of some of these challenges that we face in trying to create a better Southeast Asia, but that, you need to know what the problem is. You need to know what your challenges are before you can address them. Yeah.
Thanks, PJ. I think that's a really great point as well, in understanding what the challenges are before we can address them. And while we're on that note, actually, we have a couple of questions, I believe, addressing or asking about I guess concrete next steps or actionable steps. I'm just gonna perhaps kind of merge these couple of questions. I see one from Pecha Kucha, I believe. Sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. And also William, but basically like how can we, who if we're behind the scenes sometimes, how can we sort of like act, using this information? Or for example, how can someone who's interested in these issues participate more? Are there any concrete steps that we can take, like make these results more actionable? Is this something we can discuss with our MPs? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. The citizens' agenda isn't just about data, it's about empowerment, right? And very often we see our politicians, our political leaders, public leaders talking about issues and focusing on things that we don't actually think are as important as other things. Singapore being an example where recent discourse has focused on the quote-unquote culture wars, but Singaporeans clearly indicate what they're really concerned about is the cost of living. Now, that's not to say the culture wars are not important or that their issues are not important, but what we want people to feel when they look at the citizens' agenda and when they fill it out and when they look at the results, is to feel empowered by what the data tells them, right? To feel empowered that they are not alone in their concerns, and they feel empowered to then take this and go to their political leaders and say, hey, look, this statistically representative survey has shown that cost of living is the number one issue. What are you doing about cost of living? Right? This survey shows that education is an issue, corruption is an issue, healthcare, public health, well-being is an issue. Go to your politician and tell them, look, here's the data, here's the challenge, what are you doing about this, right? And this is statistically representative, so you can't dismiss it as, oh, it's a echo chamber, it's just middle class people, online activists, woke people. You can't dismiss it that way, because we worked very hard to make sure it's statistically representative. So I think that's the first thing. Feel empowered by the knowledge, by the data. But of course, what New Naratif will do is we will be publishing articles on these issues. We will be following up with democracy classrooms, which, Charlene, you're in charge of, civic participation, right? And we will also be encouraging people to look at the data and to use it and to come up with their own analyses of it. So it's not just about receiving the information, but looking at the data and trying to understand what the data is telling us. So we really encourage people to use the data. It's all linked from the two articles, the two reports on the website, right? And if you look at what happened in Singapore in 2019, with this data, we published a series of articles. We compiled them into a book. We had a series of democracy classrooms on them in the 2020 general election. We successfully predicted all the main issues that arose in the general election. Coming into the election, it could have gone a whole number of different ways, but New Naratif got it bang on with one tiny exception. We focus more on gender discrimination when the electoral campaigns ended up focusing more on racial discrimination. And that was my mistake, because in doing the survey, I crunched together gender and racial discrimination into one issue when I should have split it apart. And that was my error, right? But otherwise, we had it bang on. And so I think, when these articles come out, know that they are focusing on the things that are really important, things that people care about, and know that, how you feel is validated or maybe overturned by this data, but at least now you know what other people think and what your countrymen and women, country people, fellow countrymen. What's a gender neutral word for countrymen? Citizens, your fellow citizens are most concerned about.
Thanks, PJ. And I think, well, personally, I feel inspired that people are asking this question, because it sounds like this has inspired them, I guess. The data has inspired them to ask, hey, what can I do? Which is basically what New Naratif is trying to answer. So yeah, I'm mindful of time. Maybe you have time for one final short question, but PJ, I mean, what is the most surprising finding, or like maybe very interesting takeaway for you for the results this time for the Citizens Agenda? Can be from Malaysia or Singapore, or from both, but yeah.
Actually, I think I covered that. It was the comparison between the countries, right? You're Malaysian, I'm Singaporean. I don't know what your idea of your own country is, but Singaporeans are always told how Malaysia is. It's like, oh, so it's a dangerous place. It's a negative example of Singapore. It's that Malaysians are fighting each other. There's so much racial tension, and we don't have that in Singapore. And the survey shows the opposite, right? It shows Malaysians are united. They agree. These are the problems. Let's focus on the problems. Whereas Singaporeans, we're far more all over the place. And racially, the division between, it's so stark, right? The Chinese people ranked racism and discrimination really low. Malays and Indians ranked it really high. And that, I think, for me is the biggest surprise. And I think our theory, as I said, is that it's the fact that Malaysia has more political discourse, more sophisticated political discourse, more freedom of expression, freer political discourse, means that people can actually get past a lot of the very superficial discussion about these issues and have a lot more serious discussions. Now, obviously, this is not true for everyone, and there are everywhere there are politicians who say very stupid things and try and use a lot of these hot button issues. But this is a survey of the people of Malaysia, not just of politicians, right? Although I'm sure a politician or two is in the sample, but this is a survey of the people in Malaysia and the people of Singapore, and that for me is the most surprising thing, just how focused Malaysians are, and how much more overlap they have in the issues that they consider important. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Vijay. And I honestly think that that's really interesting as well. That really challenges some of like the existing impressions we have, I guess, of our own countries and Southeast Asia in general. But yeah, I found that really informative, and thank you everyone who submitted questions and comments as well. That's all the time we have, unfortunately. But if you're still interested, please again, as we've mentioned, you can learn more about the Citizens Agenda and our work. Sign up for our weekly newsletter. I believe that we've also given a link over there, so all of you could just click subscribe. And yeah, I guess back to Lizzie to move on to the next performances. Thank you.
Thank you, PJ and Charlie. Know more about all of the results and all the good stuff, just subscribe and check out all Naratif. And so for the most chill part of the night, music. I can't hear you, but I can hear you. I think you're ready for some music. I would like to introduce you to our next performer. So, a little story. Song went viral on Twitter. It sparked national controversy and backlash. Something we're very familiar of in New Naratif. But it gave Kai the opportunity to share to even more people, and tonight to all of us. I present you Kai.
Hello. 1 second. Sure, my headphones? Shit. They're 20 minutes early. I'm not even buttoned up. That's fine. Thank you so very much for having me. Once again, my name is Mata. Lizzie, can you tell me right now, can you hear me? And I am supposed to be playing right now, right? Yes? This song is called Pray Away My Gay. I wrote it after I was told that I need to go to conversion therapy for being myself. Once again, my name is Mata. I am Indonesian, and I am also very proudly flaming gay. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to be an activist in Indonesia and to make music that shows us that we are worthy of living and reminds us that we are worthy of loving and worthy of being loved. So this is Pray Away My Gay as my response to conversion therapy. And if you think that you can pray away my gay, I hate to break it, but my gay is here to stay. And it might shock you that conversion therapy, no, it won't change the way I look at her or how she looks at me with those big eyes staring at me all night, her lips lingering on mine, holding her into the day. So don't tell me that you need to cure me. The only demon I see is your claim of corrective rainbows. Fill the air tonight. Not giving up this fight is a reason we have pride. 'Cause we know there's nothing wrong with our love. So let me call your bluff. Your prayers aren't enough. If you think that you can pray away my gate, I hate to break it, but my gate is here to stay. And it might shock you that conversion therapy, no, it won't change the way I look at her or how she looks at me. If it's a choice, then I choose love. Gay or bi or genderqueer, rising up. Pray and pray, but it won't change a thing about my sapphic energy. So take a walk now. The Lord has answered all my prayers, 'cause I've got a beautiful girl who lays in bed right next to me. Cause we know there's nothing wrong with our love. So let me call your bluff. Your prayers aren't enough. And if you think that you can pray away my gate, I hate to break it, but my gate is here to stay. And it might shock you that conversion therapy, no, it won't change the way I look at her or how she looks at me. No, it won't change the way I look at her or how she looks at me. Thank you, thank you. That was my first song of the night.
Amazing as usual. It's always some acoustic performance, don't you think?
Yeah, Lizzie, you're the one that convinced me to do this night acoustically, so thank you for that encouragement. And it was your input when we were rehearsing this yesterday that made this happen.
Always a pleasure. Kai, before your last song for our, so do you mind giving us a bit of, sweet message to all of our fans around? What's your greatest hope for Southeast Asia?
Of course. My greatest hope for Southeast Asia is that we can reclaim our identity that existed prior to colonization. What did we look like in the pre-colonial era? What were those traditions, and how we actually define tradition? When did tradition start? Because I know in my case in Indonesia, a lot of cultures in Indonesia were more tolerant and very queer accepting with different gender identities beyond the binary, and that only really came into our country as a result of colonization. I would hope that we could take the time to really dive into who we are and what our traditions are and what we actually feel is culture, because I don't think discrimination is truly our culture in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, and a lot of our goals and lives with that knowledge and information, and for you guys to feel empowered to take back. Don't forget to subscribe to New Naratif and check out all of our social media for a lot more content. With that, beautiful people, this is her.
Yes, this song is her. It is the song that has sparked national controversy, international outrage, and was what thwarted me to be a queer activist in Indonesia. I am very grateful for this opportunity and grateful for a platform to share with you, and especially with people like you and New Naratif for inviting me and really expanding my reach of what my message can be and who can hear it. So thank you so very much to New Naratif. Happy birthday. An incredible 5 years. This is her. I just want the day to come where loving her is normal. I just want the time to come where loving her won't be called brave. And I am hoping for the day where I don't always have to wave rainbows in the air to prove I'm flaming gay. 'Cause loving her is oh so sweet and oh so true. Loving her is pure and kind, timeless and so new. Whether it's a choice or not, I love her like I do. To love her is to love myself too. To love her is to love myself too. Mereka boleh bilang cintaku adalah dosa. All the angry words and threats, and darling, here I am alive. Beruntung orang tuaku pikir cinta adalah cinta. If only more would take the time to see through someone else's eyes, they'd see that loving her is oh so sweet and oh so true. Loving her is pure and kind, timeless and so new. Whether it's a choice or not, I love her like I do. To love her is to love myself too. To love her is to love myself too. Their hate does change me, it teaches me to love. Their pain does show me why I choose to love. Their hate does change me, it teaches me to love. Their pain does show me why I choose to love. 'Cause loving her is oh so sweet and oh so true. Loving her is pure and kind, timeless and so new. Whether it's a choice or not, I love her like I do. To love her is to love myself too. To love her is to love myself too. To love her is to love myself. 'Cause lesbi bernyanyi, transpuan pun menari, karena kita happy. Banggaku menjadi LGBT. Sekarang mari kita lihat budaya negara kita. Tradisi Bugis, tradisi Lengger. Kalau ini bikin kamu khawatir, ingatlah moto bangsa kita. Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, pelangi juga bersinar di langit kita. Jangan lupakan sila kelima Pancasila. Lesbi bernyanyi, transpuan pun menari, karena kita
Happy bang aku menjadi LGBT. Lesbi bernyanyi, transpuan pun menari. Karena kita happy, banggaku menjadi LGBT. Aku lesbi bernyanyi, banget dengan pelangi. Karena kita happy, banggaku menjadi LGBT.
Thank you very much for having me, New Naratif. Anything else you want to say, Lizzie?
No, that will be all for today. And I hope all of you guys tonight enjoy every single thing we have for you tonight. Don't forget to subscribe, follow all of our social media at New Naratif. Thank you again for us. Don't forget that tonight is just the beginning. There's so many more things to answer and a lot more curiosity to tackle. There's so many new things and you are so ready for this, but remember, the most we matter, Southeast Asia matters. Don't ever forget that. And if you do, because we're here, New Naratif will always be there around to remind you. And we'll see you soon. Good night, everyone.